What's your experience over time in terms of observing digital twins in that domain, and what do you think that means in terms of applying those concepts to this very complex biological being that is a human?
I think this is actually very well on point with the question for world models currently, because essentially we have the same problem here as with the world models. And first of all, like what's world model, right? The world model is not an architecture. It's not. Sometimes people say like solution is a world model. World model is not an architecture. It's not. Like it's not something that I can say, well, this is the mathematical formula of world model. World model is a goal. So to have either it's a neural network, either it's something else that can predict the events and the effect of these events. So, for example, I don't know, like you drop something and then you hear the sound, it breaks, it like jumps a few feet away and so on. So this is world model. So predict the consequence of actions from your actions in as good as possible.
Yes.
Currently, we have a switch to a world model, but a lot of world models, they, for example, Sora 2 is supposed to be a world model. But that equates to a lot to a video model that does not understand physics, but rather learns from YouTube videos or whatever corpus of videos it has there, and it's a transformer. So world model can be a transformer. So it predicts the sequence of events without actually understanding the physics and the rules behind this. There are other architectures, for example, state space models that are introduce recurrency. But again, this also works to a certain extent. Then we have Yan LeCun going into this direction. Like Fei Li has her startup on world models, and digital twin is essentially something that needs a world model, because if you're an engineer, I mean, if you do something wrong with like this digital twin, and it should electrocute you with all the consequences from the machine, like burn everything around there. If you drop something, it should react accordingly. Otherwise, it's not really a twin. It's not even a distant cousin anymore. So, and of course, for humans, how difficult it is in the human body, where, let's say, you damage something, like how much impact it can have, and predicting these possible events. Currently, the world model will probably even struggle, like if you lose that much blood, how much blood is left in you. They will even struggle to predict this. So this is something that we are very far in digital twins, because we do not have world models. Maybe I remember there was a lot of hype for digital twins, like in the automotive industry. Everyone was building these cars. So, to test them, there was an idea, for example, to do the crash tests with digital twins and whatnot, because crash tests are very expensive. I feel like without a good world model, that would be extremely difficult. It will not be a twin. It will not be even a second cousin. It will be completely unrelated, stranger, digital rando. So
Well, and I think
it's
so. I've come across this concept, and I know enough, certainly not to the level of detail that you do, about the direction of what's coming. But I know enough to recognize that complexity of the human entity, because I've been involved in clinical care and healthcare for 40 years now, both as a practitioner and then selling technologies into the space. I knew enough that I went, digital twins, that term is being thrown around a lot. What does it mean and why? So I started researching, and I learned about the roots of digital twin. It's pretty quick and easy for anybody to be able to go and study that and understand it, at least at a superficial level. And I very quickly then looked at some of the applications of it, and I did a literature search for digital twin in healthcare. And I came up with, I decided I created a maturity model, a very simple 4-level maturity model that is in an article I wrote recently. that I wish I could get wider uptake, because I think it's a topic that needs to be exposed more, which is lots and lots of things are being called a digital twin, which aren't. If you apply the pure interpretation, like we just described, of what a digital twin should be capable of and what Sam Altman and others allude that is going to be deliverable, when they make their presentations and things, and then you break it down to but what is actually being delivered and labeled a digital twin, it can be a dashboard. That's level one. And literally just here is another representation of the data we know about this patient. And it might be that it's interrogable, i.e. you can ask questions of it through a chatbot or through some other mechanism, but it's still a dumb representation of data. Then you can apply some algorithmic prediction to it, and that would be level two, so that you try to create a predictive model out of the data that's there. And maybe you are able to start to draw conclusions from that data. Well, that's just analytics. That's nothing particularly clever. And a lot of the models that are being applied are just applying those analytics principles quicker. All right. They're basically using the compute and reasoning power to do it quicker than a human would do with, sort of the BI tools that are out there. The third level is then it being updated in real time, so that as the patient's condition changes, that you're able to add new data in real time, so that you're able to create a dynamic model that is of the patient that is actually changing. And it's only once you then synthesize that all to a reasoning against a body of corpus of knowledge, or professional knowledge, that you can get to that level 4 level. The big problem in terms of the evolution of it in healthcare right now is there are very narrow applications, because the human body is so complicated, very narrow applications whereby even for those dashboards, they're dashboarding either a single body system, i.e. the cardiac system, or a single disease like diabetes. There is no way yet where anybody is trying to, even at a dashboard and a predictive level, model an entire human being. Because of the complexity of all of the individual body systems, all of the individual organs, all of the potential disease processes that exist out there. And the killer is genetics. The wonderful thing about the human body is it is constantly evolving.
Bethany says, if you don't subscribe, I'm not allowed to make any more dad jokes.
Which honestly might be a selling point. But still, subscribe anyway, please.
Sometimes in good ways, in terms of the way our body genetics change. Everybody used to think that your DNA was fixed. You were born, you inherited what you inherited from your two parents, and that was it. No. Your genetics change over time. And so therefore, that's why you need that third level of the real-time inputs, because what your body state was 5 years ago is no longer your body state. For example, I've had a transplant. I now have cellular material in my body that belonged to somebody else. So therefore, that actually then starts to affect the rest of my DNA, which is why I have to take anti-rejection drugs and so on and so forth. So you look at all of that complexity. It means that the potential network of models for and data sources for all of this is enormous. And I think that that's one of the reasons why I try to sort of like, poke at this concept of that's used from a marketing perspective of a medical digital twin. Our solution provides a medical digital twin of the patient, blah, 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 blah. And it's not. One, it's incredibly narrow focus. And two, it's probably at an early maturity level. It is not a level 4 application of medical digital twin. So there you go. That's my little advert for my reasoning and thinking, and why I say I'm optimistic. I think that we will get there. Maybe not in my lifetime, but we will get there, and then it will become like Star Trek, and just the computer will know everything and help the doctor be able to instantly diagnose things and treat them. So that's my optimism. But my skepticism is people throwing those terms around very loosely now, I think confuses a lot of executives, makes it very difficult for people to understand what's really truly being delivered now, AI Realist. And I think that that's one of the things that we have to sort of try and do from there. But if you were given some advice, so because sorry, please react to what I just said.
Yeah, it sounds very similar as the case with Agentic AI. So there are like also different levels of automation, from like zero automation to completely autonomous. And people expect to have like automation level completely autonomous, where you just sit, do nothing, and the AI agents like equal employees. And in reality, it's just a system prompt with a SharePoint connection. And it's the level of automation is very, very low there. So it sounds what you described sounds like a very similar situation with this digital twin, where you think twins should actually be twinning something, but in reality, and like agents should have agency, but in reality,
Absolutely
neither of
agree.
them do that.
Yeah, that's I kind of leaned into the cyborg centaur analogy for that, in terms of when I wrote an article recently, basically saying because there's a lot of fear in medical and healthcare settings, that if we design a lot of autonomous agents, that are basically taking clinical decisions in their own right, that without a human in the loop, then that could be incredibly dangerous. Because if you allow that to happen, it happening once in a test environment or a research environment is, well, the model failed there. But if it happens persistently 1,000 times before anybody notices, that could kill people, and many people. And I think that that's why there is such paranoia in healthcare about how autonomous do we allow agents to be. If you're processing invoices or processing bills, or you're coding a medical record for billing purposes, sure, I get it. It's very probabilistic. So therefore, the variance is probably very low, so that even if there was an error, it's not necessarily going to kill someone. Might you lose money? Might you bill too much money and get your claim denied? Yes, potentially. But those consequences have always been there with any kind of software system. So yeah, I agree with you. I think that intersection of agency and where agency should reside is such an important philosophical concept and security concept for a lot of organizations, but especially so in medicine.
If you're enjoying Haverin About, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps more people find us.
And of course, subscribe so you don't miss the next bit of blethering. You wouldn't want to do that, would you?
So if we were to give, because I think that if they're still with us, a large proportion of our audience are sales and commercial and business professionals, and they've got a day-to-day business of trying to get through what they're doing, and obviously, there's a lot of good that these tools can do in terms of supporting marketing activities, day-to-day research activities, and things like that. What are the kind of practical takeaways that you would recommend to people in those business functions in terms of using these tools, how to think about adopting them and rolling them out, and understanding how they work, thinking about the challenge of over automating for real day-to-day workers who are trying to sort of make sense? What practical advice would you give?
For everyone, maybe if you work in marketing, or if you work in sales, or if you're a decision maker who decides to buy something, I would just say spend like a day or 2 or 3. You can go to AI Realist, make a tutorial, like one of the tutorials. For example, I have like the tutorial with Microsoft Copilot to build an agent, or build a website yourself, or go to YouTube, find some kind of other relevant tutorial to do something. Just like before buying anything that you think is has like will be an employee in your company as an agent, or before going to someone and selling it, because I believe that many salespeople actually believe what they're saying. I don't think everyone just walks around and lies on purpose. I think they just read this, they hear other pitches, and they repeat this. So spend 2-3 days, build an agent yourself, try to use it, and you will see very quickly where the limitations are, like how much autonomy. And then think, do you want this thing to, for example, I don't know, like make your financial decisions? Would you give this thing your money to, I don't know, spend, invest, buy stuff? Would you want this thing to make your medical decisions? And or would you want this to be an employee of your company, in the sense with all the agency an employee and decision power employee has? And then if you really hand on heart say yes, well then congratulations, you build a product that you probably can sell and make millions from in these 3 days. But most likely you will end up with the realization that actually this is a tool, so it can help, but it's not an employee. And I'm never going to give this any decision power, because this is just not cognitively there.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you for that. So I'm going to draw things to a close now. You've been incredibly gracious with your time. But before we do, one last plug for AI Realist. What next? What have you got on the slate for developing some new ideas and new articles on AI Realist?
I'm trying to live what I preach. So I always implement myself. So I test new technology, and then I write about it. So now I'm working on this, like I think the next big step in AI will be, for transformers, will be continual learning. So now the models have cutoff date where they do not know past this date, and they do
Yes.
not learn anything from you. Like some people think, oh, the more my rag bot chats with me, the better it gets. No, it doesn't. It doesn't learn
Yeah.
anything from you. So now Google published something called Titan's memories, and they can actually update their weights and kind of learn from the feedback. So now I'm trying to figure out how to plug this memory to open weight models. It's actually works quite well, at least from what I've built. So that's I'm going to publish soon. I already published some, but I mean it's still training. I mean they're training. Like you see maybe that my eyes are looking that way because I look at the training right now. So yeah, so this is what I'm going to talk a bit more about, the continual training. I wrote an article about China winning the AI race. I still believe that will be the case. So I'm going to look more at what China is, and it's not because I'm like biased or anything like this. It's objectively their models are efficient. They have energy over resources, so they don't have a challenge to power centers. They now lose this dependency on NVIDIA GPUs with Huawei. They benefit from this research hive mind, because they provide their open weight and their research, and everyone in the world kind of improves China's research, China's models now. So
apart from the US, because you think that is the challenge, is that here in the US, there is such paranoia, whether it is correct or not, about the motivation of the Chinese technologist scientists and the impact of the CCP. There is absolutely a paranoia. And even in the current administration, that means that there are limitations in terms of what people can do or what they can use or how they can interact with some of those technologies. So that's why I think it's really important that we're able to learn from individuals like yourself who are much more broad-minded, much more open-minded as to what is out there, and I think that I would encourage you to keep publishing those articles, because there are I think that there are people who don't not because there's censorship, but just because there is this implied distrust of a lot of what's going on there. Whereas my attitude is we should learn from everywhere.
But even if, I mean, even US researchers have to use those models because there is no alternative. I mean, now that Yan LeCun left Meta, they were the only ones. Like Llama was the only open weight usable model. So top US researchers also use open weight models from China because there is no alternative. Europe, like startups, companies, they are completely dependent on open weight models for local deployments because there's nothing. What else? Like Mistral, I don't want to comment on Mistral maybe too much because I get a lot of criticism for it. But honestly, you cannot compare Mistral or even what this GPT OSS with Chinese open weight models. They will be coming. They will be superior. And one pro should reconsider this attitude to open weight models. I mean, West needs open weight models. Otherwise, imagine, for example, tomorrow China just decides we are done with charity. We are not providing anymore. So how many products will collapse? So
I agree. And I think that it's important, and that's why I would encourage you, gentle listeners and watchers, to follow Maria and follow the AI Realist and other publications. Keep your knowledge broad, because that way I think it will improve all of us in terms of trying to understand. Be optimistic, but also be skeptical about your use of some of these tools and what their capabilities are. And just like with all forms of advertising and marketing, try to read between the lines and understand underneath the promises that are made. So with that, Maria, I want to thank you very much for being so generous with your time and for joining us here today. And I'm going to ask my audience to keep Haverin.